You ever get to the end of the project and realize that it's not done? It's like every single one for me. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It's episode 68 of What's on the Bench Weekly. And if you're not familiar with this show, it's where I take you through projects that I'm working on, things that are on the bench or being finished, or things that I think I've finished but aren't actually done yet. And we might as well start with that one. Here is the Boom Racing BRX02 Land Rover Series 3. A very fine model on a very fine chassis. I really like this chassis for a leaf sprung, scale accurate sort of chassis. This one is great. It's a slightly weird wheelbase because they built it to work with just this Land Rover Series 3 and the Land Rover Defender bodies. So it is pretty limited, but of course you can make modifications. You can change stuff. This is the Scale Builders Guild, is what we do here. Anyway, I didn't do any of those things. This is just a nice scale build. And I promised it last week, and I did it this week. We're weathering this truck. It's weathered. It has been weathered. It's done. That part is finished. And I will take you through all the steps and all the things that I've done. One of the things I did promise, though, was I was going to paint the flag on the bonnet, and now that's done. That's the Toronto flag, City of Toronto flag. I just masked that up, cut it on my Cricut, and then masked it individually for each color afterwards. Like I did the main color first, and then I went back and sort of cleaned it up with the next color. I had to cut some masking tape and remask, but it was all worth it. I think it looks really good. It kind of fits the build because this is the Trans-Toronto West to East Expedition 2023. And that is a play on the fact that it takes forever to get from one side of Toronto to the other. Not a massive city by any means, but certainly hampered by a lot of traffic, a lot of construction, and a lot of idiots. A lot of people that shouldn't be driving are driving. This is the map of Toronto. As you can see, where am I? I'm probably in this square over here, or maybe just on the edge of this square. It's pretty bad when you don't know your own city. Anyway, process for weathering. I'll take you through all of it in the cutaways here because I filmed all this and it's probably easier for me to voice over it as I watch it back rather than try to tell you all the steps. However, it is not a difficult process. Anybody can do this and get results that look like this. Whether you think this is good or bad, this is what weathering can look like, and I think it does a good job of kind of showing that off. Not a dented, cruddy truck, but it has some chipped paint, and it's definitely been through better days. And this is sort of just to represent what it might look like if it had traveled from one side of Toronto to the other during the season we know as construction. Let's go cut away to some of that footage and I'll share all the details with you. All right, so this first part here, this is chipping. This is like a traditional chipping. And the idea behind chipping is to make it appear as if the paint has been chipped off and revealed, in this case, the aluminum underneath. Now, there are two different ways of chipping. This is the more traditional way where you use a very fine brush and load it up with a nice silver or chrome or steel or aluminum paint and just kind of stipple it around the edges of things that would naturally get chipped because they're either a higher point where things are going to get rubbed on or just a place where it would naturally kind of chip off, like a corner of a door, for example. This is a great technique and super easy to do, provided you have a nice, small, thin brush. Now, this next method is the oil dot method. Very simple technique. Again, multiple colors are required of these oil brushers. These are great oil-based paints. So this is going to be a step that you have to do after any acrylic stuff. but it kind of helps muddle the paint and make it appear as if it's been weathered by age naturally. And you use multiple colors. I'm using brown, some sort of grime, yellow, and white, and it mixes together to create this beautiful pattern that is really hard to duplicate with any other technique. It's a beautiful randomized effect. Because it is oil-based paint, you do have a pretty good working time with it, and it is quite easy to move around if you need to, kind of get it to be a little less obvious that there's dots, and I had to do this a couple of times. Use a little bit of oil-based thinner. Whatever was left on the brush at the end, I added a little bit of that to the wheels and helped weather those out a bit too. After I let that dry for a good 24 hours, I got out my Model Air paint from Vallejo, loaded up my airbrush, and sprayed a light spray of dirt color. The idea here is just to add a little bit of texture between panels and on the edges of panels to sort of help add that it's been through a lot. There's no real good way of describing what this is for, but you know what it looks like when you see it. I'm very happy with these results. Every panel gets hit with a bit of this dirt color, and I just find that it kind of helps add some definition overall. That's some pretty darn good weathering, if you ask me. Now, for what I still need to accomplish. Well, like I said, this isn't really done yet because it's missing inner fenders. I think it most definitely, desperately has to have those so you don't see into the actual chassis underneath. That is something I really should have thought about earlier, but not difficult to do at this point. It's pretty easy to just unclip this body and lift it off and add those fenders and be done with that. The other thing we need to do is fill it full of stuff. This whole back scale garage system rack should have things on it, no? Yes, the answer is yes. If it's an expedition truck, which I've modeled it to be, there should be tons of stuff up here. Pelican cases, spare tires, tents, bedrolls built for two. All kinds of things should be up there, and they need to be weathered as well. So we're going to need to add a whole bunch of extra stuff up there, and then we're going to need to do some more airbrushing to kind of clean all that up in terms of making it look dirty. And then I think we can call this one done. But I'm quite pleased with the results so far of the weathering job. I think it suits this truck very nicely, and it knocks back that paint. That oil dot method is just fantastic. I think it's chef's kiss for making things look old. It really works. Highly recommended. I was heavily influenced by Scale Garage Systems and his Expedition style Land Rover as well. By all means, I will put a link down below to where you can get this sort of cage. If you are looking to get a BRX02, it is a fine addition, and I think it makes this truck look so good. So accurate for the era that this truck came from. I hope that you enjoyed that weathering tutorial. For me, that stuff just sends a build over the edge. And for those of you who are saying, well, just run it outside, that'll weather it. Sure, yeah, but not in this way. It'll never look like this if you take it outside. These are small scale trucks, and water and liquid dynamics and mud and dust and everything, it doesn't affect trucks like this in the same way. You don't get this effect by just driving it outside. I don't care what you say. All right, on to the next thing. Looking back over my shoulder, it does remind me that I do need to finish that CUCV. Maybe before Christmas? Question mark? It all depends on how many projects I have. There are many. Speaking of an old project from back in the day being a whole probably 2 or 3 months ago, here's the state of my leaf sprung brazen mullet full party chassis. I've done a tiny bit of work in the last couple of days to get this sort of moving in the right direction, because I do want to actually drive this truck and comp with it at some point. Anyway, body work has started. You can see I've sanded all those edges. This is all nice and smooth now. I printed this back portion in styrene or ABS, so it mates quite well to the existing body. it's going to be seamless, and I've already done a lot of sanding. The great thing about ABS is that you can sand it as much as you want, and it doesn't really warp like PLA does. So it handles the heat a lot better, and it just works with styrene bonding glue. So it's, you know, the styrene guy's choice. I should probably also pinch this front body. It is a Class 2 chassis, so I think doing a subtle or maybe an extreme pinch is probably a good idea. I'll have to modify the front clip in order to make that happen, but not difficult by any means. I've done it a few times. It should prove to be a fun and rewarding challenge. There's a couple of ways to do it. I'll explore which way I think is best to share, and then I will share it in a future episode. Onto the back, I did trim off all of the existing mounts that would usually attach this bed to the body. Because I have this back portion on the body here, I didn't want this to like ruin that, so I did want them to be separate pieces. They will obviously mate up perfectly, as you can see, but we'll just mount this separately from this because, you know, easy. This way this stays on the chassis. This can come off if necessary. Plopped this wheel and tire combo on here for now. This is always like my go-to temporary setup. It might also give you an idea of the paint scheme that I'm going for this Toyota. You get one guess. Put it down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of those comments as I can. And of course, if you're enjoying this series, you like seeing what's on the bench, hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, why not? It's free. Anyway, this is the mullet leaf sprung chassis from Brazen Scale. It's quite flexible for a leaf sprung chassis. I'm just saying, Josh, don't discount it quite yet. There are a few things I still need to do. Drive shafts is one of them for sure. I might swap servos in there. I'm not sure yet. I mean, as far as a chassis goes, it's pretty good. I like all of the angles. Everything is working pretty well here. This little stubby motor on the front. Can you see that? No. This little stubby motor on the front, right back in there, is working quite well. I shaved off the link mounts off of this Curry axle, which will mean that I can never use it on anything else except leaf sprung trucks. I may actually shave it down a little bit more so it doesn't interfere at all. We're almost at full bump and it's just starting to rub there. So whatever we can do to get it so it's not rubbing at all, I think would be helpful. It really should have been an offset front. I know that now. But I had these and I wanted to try to make them work. And I think that's sort of, you know, that's the goal of any good builder. Don't buy something when you can try to reuse something that you've already got. Yes, I do need some drive shafts, which I probably should have ordered already, but I know what I need now, so we'll get those ordered up, and then we can continue working on the body and figuring out some sliders and stuff, and then this one will be pretty much ready to go. It's a cool setup, though. I like this idea. I really like the idea of a leaf sprung setup. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's just so oddball. I like it. I will need to make up some anti-wrap bars though, because that's important. I think it'll get all bound up and it'll just want to spin these axles and then the whole leaf spring will break. So let's try to avoid that happening too. Lots of stuff to go on this one. It is a fun build though. I'm having a good time with this one. If you're interested in picking up one of these chassis and any of the other things that I happen to show off in this video, there will be links down below. All right, on to the next thing. Yep, it's a Volvo. I'm working on another drift project. I did buy a new chassis, the Rev D RDX, highly recommended by some people I trust. So that's on its way right now, but I was like, let's get started on the body. Why not? So yeah, it's a Volvo 240, which is a nice Volvo sedan from the 80s, I want to say. Late 80s, maybe? And yeah, of course, it's rocking a 2JZ, which is obvious. All Volvos have... I can't even say Volvo. All Volvos... Every Volvo has that. There you go, that was easier. Had to do some minor trimming in order to make it fit, not a big deal. I also started auditioning some 3D printed accessories. Here is some sort of cooler that'll have tubes running into it. What else have I got? Oh yeah, I found these side pipes on Thingiverse that I thought were just fantastic. I don't think they were meant to be side pipes. I'm probably pretty sure they were meant to be stacks, but that's fine. They'll work perfectly on the side there. This body's obviously going to get a lot more cuts, and it's not going to stay silver. I painted it, well, gunmetal on the inside because I am matching a car that I found on the internet. It is obviously just like a comp model Photoshop. It's not a real car, but I was like, yes, I want to build that. I think that'll look really cool. It is a drift missile inspired build. Let's make it as missile-y, buildy as we can. So yeah, lots more work to do on this. There's also going to be over fenders on the side, which I think will look pretty cool as well. It's not going to be this color for much longer, but it is going to get heavily weathered, and it's just going to look nasty. I can't wait. I'm super excited. And this will be the body that I drive all the time. The goal, again, of course, no body posts. Make it look as realistic as possible. Hopefully some sort of interior in there. I'd love to do the Night Customs Hoonigan interior. That thing absolutely rocks. It's perfect and dippy. I'm sure it'll translate over to this car just fine too. Yeah, I think that's probably about all I can say about this project for now, but it is happening, which I think is really great. I'm excited. Drift season is upon us here in Canada. It's getting to be winter, and I gotta have a car that I can drive out there all the time. And Volvos are bulletproof. All right, I think that's gonna do it. I'd love to say that it was a quick episode, but it probably isn't. Never it is with paint demos. But thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again next week.